Welcome back to this training video with Using Everyday English. And let's talk about strategies for our English teaching. Using Everyday English, our curriculum, has 4 parts as I mentioned in the last segment. There's oral conversation skills, grammar, literacy, the reading and writing part, and the interactive reading of the chronological Bible story. Now here are some tips to make your training and your classes successful. First, do not attempt to teach the entire lesson in one class period. Lesson 1 may take you as long as 5 or 6 classes to complete, because your objective is to make sure that your students know how to use English, not just to learn it. Each lesson, each book has 6 lessons. So it may take you 7 to 9 months to get just through book 1. That means that you will have to review and repeat throughout each of the lessons. And this may seem tedious, you may even seem to be getting bored, but I guarantee your students will not be. Consider challenging your students by having spontaneous reviews as you're working your way through each book and each lesson. Now, the second part. Learning English is not easy. It's difficult. It's hard. So you as a student and teacher particularly will have to be encouraging and forgiving. And so learn how to praise your students in many different ways. You can say this by saying, "Wow, that's great. You're doing a great job. You're doing better than you did the last time." Third, correct your students by simply modeling correctly. You never have to say the word, "That's wrong," or "No." All you have to do is briefly correct what you want them to say correctly and move on. Fourth, teachers do not teach English. Students must learn English. And that means that you should start thinking of yourself right now more as a coach than as a teacher. Do not stand in front of your class and lecture about English or about grammar and writing conversations and definitions on the board as a lecturer would do. You need to be involved in role-playing and demonstrating what you want your students to know. Always demonstrate, always act out what you want your students to know and understand. Be active. And that means that your students will need to be standing up often as you're doing pronunciation, as you're doing rhythm and stress, and learning vocabulary. This is so important that I cannot stress that enough. You're a coach. You're helping show them how to speak and use English. And then last, which is really important, and I wrote this on the board for you, is model, repeat, solo, MRS. On just every important part of the lesson, you will be using this system of modeling by saying, "Please listen." And then you'll have your students repeat by saying, "Please repeat." And then after your partner acts out a sentence or a role play in a conversation, then you will have them want to solo by saying, "Please say." Now, when you solo, you will do it maybe first chorally. Your whole class will repeat simultaneously. But don't leave it to that. Go to each student, and then you have each student be able to say what you want them to say in the sentence. Okay, this is really important, and I want to remind you, model, repeat, solo as the main strategy for teaching any of the parts of our lesson. All right? Now we're going to move on to some other strategies.